We're now joined by the latest candidate to enter the U.S. Senate race here in Kentucky, Lexington businessman Mr. Nate Morris. Mr. Morris, it is good to have you join us here on Red, White, and Bluegrass, and thank you for taking the time.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Bode. Great to be with you.
Good deal. Well, let's jump right into it. Given you're the newest candidate on the ballot, what do you say makes you stand apart from the rest that are going to be on the ballot?
Look, Bode, I think this election is really simple. I'm an outside business guy. I've never run for office. I'm not a career politician. And I saw the two candidates that are in the race that are essentially puppets for Mitch McConnell. These are guys that have never held a job outside of government. And I said, we've got to have something completely different. And we've got to have a clean break from Mitch McConnell. And that's what compelled me to get in this race. You know, I'm a ninth generation Kentuckian. I was raised by a single mom here in Kentucky. And I see a lot of Kentuckians hurting, like some of my family. And I felt like enough is enough. And I think these career politicians, Bode, have driven our country off a cliff, and it's time for a change.
I want to ask a bit more about Senator McConnell in just a moment, but let's start with some of the news of the day. We have President Trump's reconciliation bill going through the House right now. You've seen a lot of different stances across the GOP on this particular piece of legislation. You've also heard a lot of concerns raised by many different interest groups over things like Medicaid recipients and their eligibility, possibly losing their insurance. You also see funding for hospitals possibly being on putting them at risk. How would you address any of the possible unintended consequences if you were elected?
Look, I think first and foremost, this bill is what Kentucky voted for. I mean, President Trump carried Kentucky by 30 points, and President Trump has made it abundantly clear he's not going to cut those things. That's not going to happen. And I think that, look, these are scare tactics from the other side, and we see this every time that the Republican Party is about to have a victory. This is what Democrats typically do when we're winning. And look, I trust the president, and he's made this abundantly clear. He's going to make sure Kentuckians are protected and Kentuckians get what they need.
How would you handle a situation like what Representative Thomas Massie or Senator Rand Paul have been presented, where there may be disagreement over one policy with the president despite a broader agreement with the president's platform, but there's extra pressure to change your vote?
Look, I think we always want to make the bill as good as it can be and as conservative as it can be. But look, we all need to get along. We're all Kentuckians. Trump carried the Commonwealth by 30 points. And we need to support the president because that's what Kentuckians voted for. And I think anything that gets in the way of that is a distraction because we've got a clear victory. And I think we need to take the win and take the success and move forward so we can get this country back on track and make it great again.
Another big part of the president's platform has been immigration policy. We've seen some shifting goalposts here. It started out really, really hard. The president has now floated a possible temporary pass of sorts for some. You've suggested a total halt to immigration until deportations are sorted out from the Biden administration. Talk to me about how feasible that would be.
Look, I've been really clear about this, Bode. I think we have to have a moratorium on any new immigration coming into America until we deport every one of Joe Biden's 20 million illegals that have invaded our country. Our country is overwhelmed right now with illegals. And I think the president has made it abundantly clear that we have to prioritize the folks that are deported. And criminals go first. Obviously, the president's been very, very clear about that. But Bode, you're talking about the biggest deportation effort in the history of America. So priorities have to come, and they have to be implemented. And I think that's what the president's doing by bifurcating these deportations in different categories.
So now let's talk about the current office holder. You've also called to rescind a Lifetime Achievement Award for Senator Mitch McConnell that was going to be presented by the Republican Party of Kentucky. Now, past records have also shown some previous donations to McConnell during your time. So what's changed for you?
Look, I made contributions to Mitch McConnell in 2014. If you look back at my record, Bode, I didn't give in 2020. And I think for over 10 years now, Mitch McConnell's been a complete disaster for Kentucky and for America. And, you know, we all have heard the term buyer's remorse. And I have a lot of buyer's remorse about supporting McConnell long ago. But things have gotten even worse since then and gotten progressively worse. I mean, you know, in 2016, McConnell was a huge thorn to the president. In 2020, he tried to get him beat. And in 2024, as soon as the president gets inaugurated, the first thing he does is try to shoot down a lot of his nominees and continue to cause problems. So, look, I think we've all experienced buyer's remorse. I certainly have it with Mitch McConnell. And that's a big part of the reason why I'm running too, is that we got to have something totally different. Mitch McConnell's been in that seat for over 40 years. And, he's forgotten the people of Kentucky. I think the thing that's been so challenging for me to hear about is, as I was having conversations about the race before I even got in, everybody would say, this is Mitch's seat. This is Mitch's seat. It's not Mitch's seat. It's the people's seat. And it needs to be given back to the people. And that's a big part of why I'm getting in this thing, why I chose to run. And I think that's what Kentucky's yearning for, and that's what Kentucky needs to be successful.
As a businessman, are you largely self-funding your campaign? What kind of donor support are you seeing?
Look, I think, look, as an outsider, I had to make an investment in my race because I've got to be able to overcome the career politicians that get money from all the lobbyists and the PACs and all the things that get them off the ground. So just like a new venture, I've had to put in some of my own capital, and I'm willing to spend whatever it takes to be successful. But we've had a tremendous groundswell of thousands of individual contributions all over the country about this message and about our ability to take on the McConnell machine, the McConnell mafia that has had a stranglehold on Kentucky. So look, it's going to take the grassroots. It's going to take everybody to get involved and everybody to chip in. And to the viewers out there, please go to my website, natemorris.com, and chip in. I need your help because this is a monumental effort. And I believe Washington's going to be radically different when we rid the stench of Mitch McConnell out of Washington. And look, the two guys in the race, they're puppets for Mitch, and we cannot let them get elected. And I think this is what this campaign's all about.
Now, you've seen another candidate release their own campaign polling. I've not seen much independent polling yet on this race. Is your campaign planning to release any polling? How are your internal numbers looking?
Look, what I'm going to say is we have, I believe, an incredible message, a message that people are excited about, they're hungry for. How do we get back to living the American dream? And one of the things that I've been so fortunate, Bode, in this country is, I built one of the largest garbage companies in America. I found my American dream in trash. And I don't think there's anything more American than making money with garbage. And that gives me a lot of hope that I think the American dream is still alive and well, but we got to keep it alive, and we got to have policies and leadership that understands how to make that dream real for everyday working Kentuckians that are trying to make it. And look, we're going to start out as someone who's never been in politics. Both these guys have made politics their career. And one of the things I also say is, if they weren't running for office, I don't know what they would be doing because they've never worked in the private sector. They've never created a job. And so I think you're going to see our poll numbers move very, very quickly as soon as we continue to get out our message and continue to talk to Kentuckians around the Commonwealth.
What's going to be your strategy to address hurdles like name recognition, for example?
Look, I think we have a fantastic message, Bode, and we've got something that is very fresh and unique. And look, I'm an outsider. I'm not a career politician. And I've already been overwhelmed on social media, online, for all the inquiries that are coming in, all the support we're getting from the grassroots. And that's what gets me really excited and really excited about our message and hopeful that we're going to be able to reach every Kentuckian around the Commonwealth to share our contrasting vision, because it's a contrasting vision to the other two Mitch puppets that are in the race, Daniel Cameron and Andy Barr, that are career politicians, and that we cannot send these people to Washington. And I think the message is going to be abundantly clear when we continue to share that message with Kentuckians.
Some political observers believe that this primary is also a race for President Trump's endorsement. Just how crucial do you believe that will be in order to win this primary?
Look, we'd be honored to get the president's endorsement. And I think if you look around the people that are surrounding our campaign, I mean, Charlie Kirk was just in town on Monday. Charlie endorsed us. The Turning Point USA network. It's one of the strongest in the country. And I think he speaks for the next generation of voters, of young people around the country. We've got that energy and that enthusiasm. I launched my campaign on Donald Trump Jr.'s podcast, And I think that signals to our voters where we stand with Trump and where we stand with MAGA. And I think that's going to be very, very important as we continue to communicate to Kentuckians all over the Commonwealth. But look, we're going to work every day to continue to earn the president's trust, to stand with him. And the president has an amazing track record, as you know. He picks winners. And so we'd be honored to have his endorsement. And we're going to work hard every day to show him that we're working to earn it and working to stand with him.
If the president ends up endorsing multiple candidates, how do you think that will affect the race?
You know, look, I don't, that doesn't happen very often, Bode. I think that's sort of a needle in a haystack scenario. So I don't think about that much. Look, we got a race to run. I think people know where we stand as the outsider, the business guy, the MAGA candidate. And I think that speaks for itself compared to the two career politicians. And I look back at the president's track record. He tends to favor candidates like us. And so that obviously shows that I think we're headed in the right direction and we're the right kind of candidate for this time in history, because we don't need more career politicians. And President Trump, being the outsider that he is and the business person that he is, he's shown that he can get things done like the career politicians couldn't do. And also my friend J.D. Vance. I mean, J.D. Vance is another great example who's been a big inspiration to me, our friendship. And he's shown that as an outsider, you could really make things happen. And I think that that's what Washington needs more of. We don't need to send two McConnell puppets to Washington, D.C.
Would you say that your policy stances always politically align with President Trump? Have there been any issues where you may disagree?
Look, I've been very clear. I'm standing with the president 100%. And I think the people of Kentucky are with President Trump. I mean, President Trump has iconic status in Kentucky, carried the state by 30 points. And we haven't seen this in over 100 years for a presidential candidate. So I think it's abundantly clear where Kentuckians are and where our campaign is going to be. And we're going to continue to drive that message, Bode.
Well, as we sunset our interview together, between agriculture, energy, housing, there's a lot of major issues that will get the attention of our next senator. What do you think that will be the most important to address our Commonwealth's needs?
Look, I've made it abundantly clear. We've got to have a moratorium on any new immigration into our country. We have to deport every single one of Joe Biden's illegals that have invaded our country. We have to do this immediately. This is a national crisis. This is a crisis of national security. And this is a crisis of sovereignty of America and the fate of Western civilization. Western civilization is on the line if we do not take action on this measure. So we've made that abundantly clear to make that the focal point of our messaging and how we stand with the president. And I think it's been very enthusiastically met by Kentuckians around the Commonwealth. And we're really excited about that message.
All right, U.S. Senate candidate Nate Morris, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Bode. Great to be with you.